Hi, everybody. Welcome to JACC. I'm Dennis Ko, one of the new editors at JACC. It's my pleasure to welcome Dr. Suzanne Arnold from St. Luke's Mid-America Heart Institute. She's going to talk to us about this late-breaking study that's coming out at TCT as well as at JACC in a couple of weeks, entitled Quality of Life After Transcatheter Tricuspid Valve Replacement, 1-year result from a TRISCEND II Pivotal Trial. So welcome, Suzanne, and congratulations. Perhaps we can start by you giving us a summary of the studies and what you find.
Yeah, so TRISCEND II is the first clinical trial of the tricuspid transcatheter valve replacement. The clinical results are also published in New England Journal today, and what we did was a kind of a deep dive into the quality of life results. So this trial randomized patients with severe or greater tricuspid regurgitation 2-to-1 to device versus medical therapy, and followed them for 1 year. And the primary results looked at death and heart failure hospitalization and tricuspid reintervention. And what they found was that in the overall kind of hierarchical composite, which included quality of life versus with the KCCQ, as well as New York Heart Association 6-minute walk, that the device was superior in terms of the win ratio, but most of that was driven by the quality of life and functional outcomes. And so this we thought was really important to really understand the value of the procedure to patients, to really understand kind of how these devices impact patients' function, quality of life.
That's fantastic. Can you tell us a little bit about the quality of life study you did? Like, when do you capture the quality of life? How do you measure them? And like, what do you find from that perspective?
Yeah, so quality of life was primarily done with the KCCQ, or Kansas City Cardiomyopathy Questionnaire, and this is a heart failure disease-specific health status measure. We did actually validate this in patients with severe tricuspid regurgitation. That manuscript is also going to be published at the same time as our trial. And it was measured at baseline, 30 days, 6 months, and 1 year. And what we saw is that patients in the intervention arm had a moderately large improvement in their KCCQ scores at 1 month. So it was about 11-point mean treatment difference between device and medical therapy. Between 1 month and 6 months, that actually significantly increased. So it went to a mean treatment difference of 20 points. And that was a little bit, I guess, unexpected. But then it was stable through 1 year. And so I think, what we concluded was that the patients in the device arm had a rapid response in terms of their quality of life benefit, but that's also tended to grow over time.
Mm-hmm. And I also remember I've seen some subgroups in the study, and you're trying to identify some groups that may even have bigger impact. Is that right? Can you tell us a little bit about, I think like if you have more tricuspid regurgitation, less than those patients?
Yeah, so we kind of looked for heterogeneity treatment benefits. So this is looking for treatment interactions, certain patient characteristics that might predict a greater or lesser benefit with the procedure. And there were 3 kind of primary interactions with patient factors. And I think the most interesting one was with baseline tricuspid regurgitation. So patients who had severe tricuspid regurgitation still had a moderately large improvement with intervention versus medical therapy. But if you had massive or torrential TR at baseline, that mean treatment benefit was over 2-fold greater. So patients who had more TR at baseline had a greater benefit. And this we thought made sense because the transcatheter valve replacement essentially eliminates TR. So no matter what TR you start with, you're getting to mild or less. And so if you start out with more TR, you're going to have a greater amount of TR reduction, and so therefore greater improvement in quality of life. The other 2 interactions that we saw were with baseline functional status. So patients who had preserved 6-minute walk times had a greater improvement, and then patients who had preserved RV function had a greater improvement with intervention versus medical therapy.
That sounds great. For those who are not familiar with the KCCQ, can you tell us like what, like 10 points, you mentioned 10, 20 points, like what does that mean if you can put it in context with like,
Sure.
like what's that, how does that feel for patients or maybe like some other therapies or is that like
Right.
big? Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great question. And those of us who are familiar with the instrument are obviously, we start talking in points and nobody really understands what that means. There's been a lot of psychometric work with the KCCQ, and generally speaking, a 5-point change within an individual is considered clinically important. So that is a small but clinically important difference. 10 points is considered kind of moderately large, and then, kind of 15 greater. 20 is considered a very large improvement, and the scale goes from 0 to 100, and kind of 45 or less is NYHA class 4, 45 to 60 class 3, 60 to 75 class 2, and over 75 is class 1. So these 20-point differences or 15 to 20-point differences are actually very large, much larger than what you would see with any of the kind of medications that we use for heart failure. It's pretty normal for these device trials. So TAVR, MTIR, those types of things. We see these larger benefits up front of these kind of 15, 20-point improvements.
Sounds great. And the audience at JACC also knows that besides the transcatheter valve replacement, there are also TEER that's being done and some of the results are reported. Can you put those in context with this? It's hard to compare head-to-head for sure, but like I think those also show some improvement in the KCCQ.
Correct. And we published that last year. Definitely don't want to go too deep into cross-trial comparisons because they're different. A little bit, the patient populations were a little bit different. Obviously, they're all both treating severe or greater tricuspid regurgitation. A couple of things that we did note that were somewhat different. I think the most interesting one was the pattern of improvement. So with T-tier, almost all of the quality of life benefit is seen up front. So within 1 month, you're getting the full benefit. Whereas with tricuspid valve replacement, you see this improvement at 1 month, but that it continues to increase from 1 month to 6 months. And so we don't, it's not 100% sure if this has to do with recovery from the procedure. The valve replacement procedure is a bit more invasive. So, is it causing some kind of RV stunning that patients have to recover from, or is it due to more remodeling because you are, reducing tricuspid regurgitation more, and so you're getting more RV remodeling after 1 month, and so therefore continued benefit. I think those are things that we still don't know, but that is one kind of interesting difference between the two procedures.
Got it. One thing I think the audience, the community is really interested in understanding is that, you kind of mentioned this, like these big reduction in KCCQ, but yet heart failure hospitalization isn't really reduced in many of these trials. So
Right.
People kind of think that, why is that the case? Can you give us some insights into why that might be?
Yeah, so this is something that we've really done, I think, a lot of work on, because, when you have an open label study and it's a patient reported outcome, there's obviously a lot of very legitimate concern that what we're seeing is just placebo effect. Why aren't, we seeing this impact in heart failure, hospitalization, and mortality? And we've looked at this in a number of places, and we did look at this in TRISCEND II as well, that patients who had whose KCCQ was better had a reduction in the risk of heart failure, hospitalization, and mortality. And then it starts to say, well, how do you reconcile those two? And I think the biggest issue in these trials thus far is kind of the event rate. So in terms of power, there weren't a lot of deaths. There weren't a lot of heart failure hospitalizations in the overall cohort. And so even though, if these patients were followed longer, if we had more patients, we potentially would see a benefit. I just think that we were highly underpowered to find death and heart failure hospitalization in these trials.
Yeah, sounds interesting. I hear people also say that tricuspid regurgitation is a less common condition to be hospitalized with status edematous. They've got ascites,
Right.
and they don't necessarily need to come to the hospital. I don't know whether that could be a factor as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you look at the baseline KCCQ scores in these trials, both TRISCEND and TRILUMINATE, this is actually very similar to COAPT, but the heart failure hospitalization rate is substantially lower. So I think that even though these patients are very symptomatic, it's causing this shortness of breath, but it may not be causing pulmonary edema that then requires hospitalization. And so I do think that the treatment, the disease processes are different to some degree, and therefore the event rates are lower.
That's fantastic. Anything else you would like to tell the audience, Suzanne, that we missed?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think so.
Great, thanks a lot. So again, congratulations. We look forward to seeing you at TCT in the late breaking session, as well as having this paper in print in JACC. So thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to talk.